Transformations, Women, Gender, and Psychology, 3rd edition, by Mary Crawford. Chapter 6, Gendered Identities, Childhood and Adolescence Continued. Neil, age 6, has liked to draw ever since he could pick up a crayon. His drawings have earned him lots of attention and praise from his preschool teachers, and the refrigerator at home is covered with them. His parents are proud of his talents and even took him to meet a real artist in his studio. They are amazed when Neil suddenly loses interest in drawing, saying that art is for girls. Rosa, age 3.5, goes to a female pediatrician for her regular checkups and has an aunt who is a physician. Therefore, her parents are astounded to hear her announce to a playmate, "Girls can't be doctors. Girls are nurses, and doctors are boys." Those behaviors are hard to explain. Using social learning theory, learn their gender-typed beliefs when non-stereotypes were being reinforced and modeled for them. One answer to this question is offered by cognitive development and gender schema theories of gender development. These two cognitive theories offer the intriguing idea that children willingly socialize themselves to be masculine or feminine. Cognitive development theory. This approach to gender development began by building the research of Jean Piaget, who observed that young children think in ways that are qualitatively different from older children and adults. Piaget believed that children move through a fixed series of stages in their cognitive development they cannot grasp until they have reached the appropriate. Children's predictable errors in thinking indicate that they have different, less mature ways of thinking than adults, less sophisticated modes of cognitive organization. Regardless of what stage they have reached, however, children actively strive to interpret and make sense of the world around them. According to the cognitive development approach, gender identity and gender typing are the outcome of children's active cognitive structuring of their physical and social world. Children understand some things about the concept of sex and gender long before others. A 2 or 3-year-old child can answer correctly when asked if he or she is a boy or a girl, and is able to classify by changing their hairstyle or clothing. At age 2.5, one of my children maintained stubbornly that the real difference between boys and girls was that girls wear berets. The child may believe that boys can grow up to be mommies, as the following conversation between two young boys shows. Johnny: "I'm going to be an airplane builder when I grow up." Jimmy: "When I grow up, I'll be a mommy." Johnny: "No, you can't be a mommy. You have to be a daddy." Jimmy: "No, I'm going to be a mommy." Johnny: "No, you're not a girl. You can't be a mommy." Jimmy: "Yes, I can." This conversation is concrete and limited. Johnny, who is slightly older, understands gender constancy. He knows that gender is permanent, while Jimmy does not. By the age of 6 or 7, almost all children understand gender consistency. According to cognitive development, theory is a result of cognitive maturation. Once children know that they are and always will be one sex or the other, they turn to the task of matching the societal expectations for people of their sex. Almost immediately after they learn to label themselves and others by sex, children start to engage in stereotyped play. They start to value behaviors, objects, and attitudes that are consistent with their gender. In fact, they adopted the binary construction of gender that is the only one allowed in our society. Children make it their own. Boys become obsessed with superheroes, weapons, combats, and symbols of strength, such as construction equipment and dinosaurs. Girls adorn themselves as princesses in glittery tiaras and insist on wearing pink frilly dresses even in freezing weather. None of this behavior needs much encouragement from parents. It is motivated from within. In middle childhood, many startling shift from princess to tomboy. They want to play wear pants, and be as active and adventurous as the boys. 50% of girls in elementary school were tomboys. Boys show no corresponding shift. Most remain steadily gender typed from preschool onward. Oddly, theories of gender development largely ignored, perhaps because it was only about girls, which would be an example of androcentric thinking, or perhaps because their theories couldn't explain it. In a world that largely reinforces gender conformity and where boys were towing the line, how could so many girls be gender nonconforming and getting away with it? Graduate student Mei Ling Halem and her colleagues proposed a theory to account for girls shifting to become women. First, as girls mature cognitively, they realize their lower status and the possibility of gender discrimination. For some girls, the value they place on masculine attributes may increase. Boys' activities and traits are appealing because girls can see that society appreciates and rewards boys and what they do more than girls and what they do. Second, girls' understanding of gender becomes more flexible as they mature cognitively. Being a tomboy is a way to engage some of the status privileges of boys while still being an acceptable girl. 18-year-old girls found that tomboys view themselves as girls with options, who don't necessarily reject girl stuffs, they just like boy stuffs too. Interestingly, they had more flexible and egalitarian attitudes towards other kids' gender transgressions than more traditional children did. Like social learning theory, cognitive development theory has generated a great deal of research. This research supports the idea that children's understanding of gender is related to their cognitive maturity. Research does not support the theory's claim that children become gender typed only after they acquire an understanding of gender constancy. On the contrary, they do not fully understand gender constancy until several years later. Recent research and theory accounting for gender nonconformity in the form of tomboyism is an interesting addition to the cognitive development approach. Gender schema theory. As discussed in Chapter 3, a schema is a network of mental associations. According to schema theory, it is difficult or impossible to understand information when you cannot connect it to a schema or when you unintentionally connect it to the wrong schema. Gender schema theory uses the cognitive approach to explain gender typing. Like other schemas, the gender schema is used by the individual as an aid to thinking and understanding. According to gender schema theory, the gender schema is learned very early and it guides the individual in becoming gender typed. As children learn the contents of their society gender schema, they learn which attributes are linked to their own sex and hence to themselves. Gender schema theory conceives of gender typing as a readiness to organize the world in terms of gender and to process information in terms of gender association. This is more than just learning how boys and girls are ranked on each dimension. The boys are supposed to be stronger than girls, for example, but also that the dimensions of strength is more important in evaluating boys. In other words, a difference between people who are highly gender typed and those who are not is that gender typed people have a well-developed gender schema and rely on it spontaneously in making sense of the world. They are gender schematic. Less gender typed people have less developed gender schemas and rely more on other schemas. They are gender aschematic. The difference is a matter of degree, because everyone in our society has developed some sort of schema for gender. Gender schema lead to selective attention and selective memory. In one experiment, 5 and 6-year-old children saw pictures of boys and girls doing stereotype consistent activities, such as boys playing with the truck, and stereotype inconsistency, inconsistent ones, such as a girl using a hammer. A week later, when the children's memory for the pictures was tested, they tended to misremember the stereotype inconsistent pictures. For example, they thought they had seen a boy using a hammer. This study suggests that as early as age of 5, children have gender schemias and use them to filter information as they categorize the world around them. By this age, they already believe that certain occupations are for men and others are for women. When asked what they would like to be when they grow up, they are likely to choose an occupation that is stereotyped for their gender. Gender schemia theory suggests that children can be brought up in ways that minimize the development of gender schemia, and thus bypass gender stereotype thinking and behavior. If others around them paid less attention to gender, children would not automatically categorize by it, any more than they automatically categorize in terms of eye color. If they were taught to use the concept of sex to refer to anatomically difference, they would not assimilate irrelevant dimensions to gender schemia. They would differentiate male and female in sexuality and reproduction, but other aspects of behavior would remain gender neutral. Gender schemia theory stimulated a great deal of research in topics such as gender stereotypes in children's books and toys and psychological comparison or more or less gender-typed individuals. It has been useful for over 3 decades as a framework for understanding the social scope of gender. In summary, social learning and cognitive theories emphasize different influences on children's gender development. Social learning theory maintains that children are shaped by the people and environments they encounter in everyday life. Cognitive theories emphasize that the child's mind is actively trying to comprehend and categorize gender information. Cognitive development theory proposes that this occurs in distinct stages, whereas gender schemia theory emphasizes the gradual development of a complex mental network about gender and its assimilations to the self. No single theory has the answer, but virtually all psychologists agree that social forces interact with biological and cognitive factors in gender development. In what follows, we will look in detail at gender influences in children's lives, showing how these factors interact to produce adults who fit in the gender system.